Hey, welcome back to Rick's Reviews. I'm your host, Movie Real Rick. And today, we're talking about the highly disappointing and hopefully final chapter of the famed Sylvester Stallone series, Rambo: Last Blood. Rambo: Last Blood likely marks the end of an era that began all the way back in 1982 with Rambo: First Blood, followed by Rambo: First Blood Part 2 in 1985, then Rambo Part 3 in 1988, followed by the very unexpected fourth installment, Rambo, released 20 years later in 2008. And now we finally have Part 5, Rambo: Last Blood, which really should have been titled Rambo: Franchise Fatigue. Much like the Rocky movies, his other film franchise that will never die until he does, Stallone is playing an outdated character who's just no longer relevant today, and one that he's way too old to be playing. For those unfamiliar, the character John Rambo is a former Green Beret Vietnam vet who is the ultimate badass that all your friends who were in the military pretend to be. In the original film First Blood, Rambo is just trying to find his place in the world after having been cast aside by the military after the end of U.S. involvement in Vietnam. He gets harassed and beat up by local cops for no particular reason, and subsequently opens up a can of whoop-ass on them using his elite training, guerrilla tactics, and overall badassery. In the sequel, First Blood Part 2, Rambo gets sent back to Vietnam in search of missing POWs. He finds them, liberates them, and subsequently opens up a can of whoop-ass on their captors using his elite training, guerrilla tactics, and overall badassery. I don't really remember the specifics of Rambo 3 and 4, but there's a pretty good reason why there were 10 and 20-year gaps between the last couple of releases. Now let's face it, Sylvester Stallone is not known for making deep, thought-provoking movies. Rocky, Judge Dredd, Demolition Man, The Expendables. He's an action star. He kicks ass and takes names. And the storyline of any given Sylvester Stallone movie is, pardon the pun, expendable. But that doesn't mean that his movies aren't entertaining. In fact, quite the contrary. Most of his movies are highly enjoyable, and at the very least, fun to watch on account of the ridiculousness. And, most importantly, they always make lots of money. That's why he's been a star for over 40 years, and that's why they keep putting him in movies even though he's well into his 70s. But this movie was a huge letdown. It lacked every element of a good Stallone movie, and it's just a dark, gritty, and overall unhappy movie. I mean, usually when I see old Sly firing that 50 cal, I get all warm and fuzzy inside. But after watching this movie, I just felt depressed. So Last Blood opens up with Rambo living a nice, peaceful life on an Arizona ranch with his beautiful niece Gabrielle, who's just about ready to ship off to college. But then, Gabrielle gets a phone call from some punta down in Mexico saying that she's found Gabby's long-lost father who walked out on the family years ago. Against Rambo's advice, Gabby sneaks down to Mexico but ends up getting sex trafficked, leaving Rambo to track her down and rescue her. So basically, it's the exact same storyline as Taken, except not nearly as good, way less ass-kicking, and they're in Mexico instead of Europe. Now, this movie has been accused of being racist and xenophobic, which is entirely untrue. First off, Sly has a live-in Hispanic housekeeper, and his niece is also Latina, so he's obviously not a racist. And if he does carry some kind of prejudice, it sure as hell ain't against Mexicans, which is who he's fighting in this whole movie. Second of all, like I said before, this movie has the identical plot as Taken, which has 2 sequels. So either all the Taken movies are also racist and nobody ever said anything, or everyone has just gotten way too sensitive in the last 10 years. Anyway, racist or not, this movie sucked. It moves really slow, and there's hardly any action to speak of until the final sequence, which is over the top and super gory. There's no big actors in it except for Stallone, and now I totally see why, because nobody wanted anything to do with this abomination. It's the worst Rambo movie, probably the worst Stallone movie, and possibly the worst movie of 2019. It's not even worth watching on Netflix for free, which it will undoubtedly be coming to very soon. Take Movie Real Rick's advice on this one and go see anything else. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my review, please like and subscribe and comment below on what you thought of the movie and my review. And tune in next weekend and every weekend for new reviews on movies and TV shows. Same Rick time, same Rick channel. Thanks for watching Movie Real Rick.